Hi guys, and welcome to learntocreategames.com. Today we'll have a look at converting a script in JavaScript into C#. So we'll look at different type of variables, functions, and also how to really find it easier to convert between those two types. So let's get started. So first, what I have here is a very simple project, and what I will do is create a very simple script, a script that will be written in JavaScript with variable declarations, for instance, functions, so all the kind of usual simple statement that we will have for a script. So again, I'm going to rename this script simple script, and then create an empty object. So this empty object basically will be used as a script container. So again, whenever my script has been created and my empty object created, I can take this script and drag it and drop it onto this empty object. So again, you can look on the right hand side. This script is a component of the empty object. So now what we'll do is we'll edit the script and create very simple statements. So again, I'm going to remove to start with the pragma strict instruction, which is suppose it's kind of a way to be a bit more strict as regard to how the script is written, but for now I will just remove it. And then what I will do is create two variables. So the first variable will be an integer. So again, if you remember well, in JavaScript you have the var statement, and then you have var, then the name of the variable, then the type. So in our case we have a variable called counter, and the type is integer, so int. And the second variable called message is a string. So again, nothing very difficult so far. In the start function, again, we're going to initialize those two variables. So counter will be set to 0 and message will be set to hello. Then in the update function, we will do two things. We will detect for a keystroke. So again, we will detect whether the player or the user will press the key called O on the keyboard. And whenever this key has been pressed, we'll do two things. We'll increase the score by 1, and we will also call a function. Okay, and this function will display a message. So again, here, input.getKeyDown.getKeyCode.o. What it does is look for whenever the key called O on the keyboard is pressed. And whatever this is the case, we're going to call a function called myFunction. So again, MIFUNCTION, so myFunction. And we will pass a parameter as well to this function. So again, a few seconds there. So again, we're going to pass the parameter called message to this function. And again, if you remember well, the message is hello. So again, here I'm just going to finish describing this function right there. So again, in this function, I will print a message. So again, the message will be message, then column, and then the actual message that was actually passed as a parameter. So again, this is very simple. We just print a message. We could have done it in the update function, but I just want to show you how you can call function either in JavaScript or C#. So once this is done, I just need to increase the score by 1 or to print the score. So again, print, then print, I'm going to write score and then score. But again, as you might have already noticed, score has not been defined yet, and it should be counter. So again, I will need to go back to my code later to change the line 15 to use counter instead, and the same in the line 25. In fact, if I switch back to Unity and look at the console window, we should see an error. Okay, so if you look at the console window, if I clear it, an error should appear whenever I want to play it. So again, here you can see that in the line 15, the variable score is not known. Obviously, it has not been defined, so that makes sense. So again, we remove score here and replace it by counter. So when this is done, again, you can do the exact same on line 26. And now we should be pretty much ready to go with a script that will basically print a message or update a message whenever we press the key called O on the keyboard. So you have to play the scene, and here what I need to do also is to click on the game window so that the keystrokes are detected. So in my case here, whenever I press this particular key, so I need to go to the game view first, press the key several times, and then go back to the console window. So if I go back to the console window, you can see that the message called hello was displayed, and the score has been increased as well, from 1 to 2. So again, this works relatively well. And what we could do to make this a little bit more visual, I'm going to create a UI interface. So you might be already acquainted with this concept, the idea of displaying on-screen messages. So again, I'm going to go to UI and then text. So I'm going to create basically a text on screen. And once this is done, I'm going to give it a name and initialize it. So again, after a few seconds, you should see a canvas. The canvas is basically a container for this text element. And within this canvas, you should see the text right there. So I'm going to change its name to message. In fact, I'm going to rename it later message UI. And I will remove the text within as well. Okay, so again, so that whenever the game starts or the scene starts, that this text is basically empty. So here I'm just going to move the text slightly up. You can see also that there's a white rectangle, and this white rectangle basically is just showing you where the view will be. So if you prefer, all the element that you're creating will be displayed on screen. So the white rectangle basically is the screen. And that's done. So again, then the message is test in our case. And I'm going to change the actual name of this element to message UI. Once this is done, what I'd like to do is to access this UI element. To do so, I can just do GameObject.find. Again, I'm going to look for the object called message UI. And once this is done, I'm going to get the component. So get component. I'm going to access the component from this object that is called text. Now again, I'm going to use UI.text. Is because this text is a UI component, a user interface component, so again UI.text, and then brackets plus a dot and text. Again, we access the text attribute of the UI text component that is on the object called message UI. So when this is done, again, we're going to clear the console and try to play the scene, and now we should see that every time I press on the actual key, we should have a different message. So again, here you can see that the text display is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so forth. So every time I press on the key, the counter is increased and its value is displayed on screen. So at this stage, we're actually okay. This is working perfectly in JavaScript. So what I'd like to show you now is really how to be able to transfer that to a C# code, So again, there won't be many changes as you will see. There won't be many changes at all. So the first thing, I will create a script called simple script. Now they can have the same name because the script have two different format. The first one is JavaScript, so .js, and the other one is C#, so .cs. So they're actually different scripts because their extension is different. So once this is done, then I just copied what was in the previous script, and I'm going to paste it within the class. Now you're going to notice a few things. The first thing is the class name is usually the same as the name of your file. Okay, so that's something. So whenever you create a file, it will automatically create this class name inside, and it's going to be the same as the name of your script. The second thing is that the variables in C#, the type is usually specified before the name of your variable. So again, int counter as opposed to var count dot and int. The functions are usually void. Okay, so void means that it doesn't return any information. So usually it's void. So again, any of my functions here don't return any information. Start, update, or my function to not return any information. So we'll actually replace the term function by void. And then again, the difference that the get component that you use in JavaScript is slightly different in C#. You remove the dot just after the get component. And the last thing I will do is I'm calling UI.text in JavaScript. In C# to make things a little bit easier, I'm going to call it text, but what I will say is that I'm going to import a library, unityengine.ui. So what I'm doing is saying that I'm going to import the UI library. So basically, whenever I refer to something called text, it may be from this library. So instead of typing UI.text, by typing text, it will actually know where to find it. So that's about it. I think I've corrected most of the errors there. So again, what I need to do is to drag and drop this C# script onto my object. And before that, I've just deactivated the JavaScript version. And once this is done, just play my scene, and it should work just as before. Again, if I press the key several times, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So again, it works the exact same way, but the only difference is that we are using now C#. So a few differences to highlight. Again, here the using statement is just importing some libraries that are necessary for our script. The one that I've added, so unityengine.ui, it just makes it possible to access some of the UI elements directly. So instead of referring to UI.text, if I put .text, the code editor will be smart enough, or the compilation will be smart enough to know that the text element will actually be taken from the UI library. The next thing is the actual variable. So again, the name of the variable is following its type. So again, int counter. In JavaScript, it was the other way around. And for message, it's going to be the exact same. For each function, again, if the function does not return any value, it can be declared as void. So again, it's the exact same as before, but the idea in C# that you have to specify whether they actually return information. And as we will see later, if they do return information, you have to specify the type. So if they were returning an integer value, we will have removed void and put int instead, and so forth. And the last modification that we've made was in the get component. So again, the dot after get component is removed, and that's it. That's the main differences. So again, as you can see, it's relatively easy to convert your script. Now, those are very simple statements, and of course, for a bit more advanced statement, you might need more modifications. But for what you have right now, it should be pretty much easy to convert your script from JavaScript to C#. Well, that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. And again, if you want to learn more about Unity, please check the website learntocreategames.com. See you. Bye.